Spooky season is here once again, and you're getting sleepy. Very sleepy. Look into my eyes and let us commune with the great beyond to learn the basics on the Decepticons' mystic hypnotist, Mindwipe. The original Mindwipe toy was released in 1987 and transformed into a bat. He was a Headmaster, a kind of transformer whose head disconnected and transformed into a partner minifigure that could then ride in a cockpit built into his beast mode. Marvel Comics writer Bob Budiansky wrote a character profile for Mindwipe that described him as an eerie, mystical bot fascinated by the dark arts, who had the power to hypnotize others. He spent his free time trying to communicate with the spirits of dead Decepticons, though the only thing he'd ever actually managed to tap into was old Earth TV broadcasts. His Headmaster partner was an alien from the planet Nebulos named Vorath, who was his world's disgraced former Minister of Science. The story of how Mindwipe became a Headmaster was told in both the Marvel comic book and the Transformers cartoon. The basic story was the same in both versions. Mindwipe was part of a Decepticon unit who pursued a crew of Autobots across space to Nebulos, only to discover that the Autobots had bonded with heroic Nebulans as Headmasters to fight them off, forcing the Decepticons to do the same with a cabal of evil Nebulans to match their enemy's new power. In the comic, the combination of Mindwipe's hypnotic powers and Vorath's scientific skills made them some of their leader Scorponok's most indispensable minions. Spotlight stories written exclusively for the United Kingdom's version of the comic saw Mindwipe attempt to mesmerize the Autobot Highbrow, only to fail when he neglected to also hypnotize Highbrow's Headmaster partner Gort, and later make his own play for power, trying to create an army of mind-controlled humans by manufacturing and selling a line of hypnotic nightlights. Towards the end of the comic's run, frustrated by Scorponok's ineffectual leadership, Mindwipe deserted his command and was press-ganged into joining up with a rival Decepticon faction led by Shockwave to help him overthrow Scorponok and take leadership for himself. The cartoon's version of the story, told in the show's three-part finale, The Rebirth, took a slightly different approach to Mindwipe and Vorath's relationship, playing up their contrasting ideologies and depicting them as a bickering pair. The scientific Vorath had little time for Mindwipe's talk of magic and superstition, so Mindwipe actually had to hypnotize Vorath into becoming his head. Mindwipe's story unfolded rather differently in Japan, where The Rebirth wasn't aired, and instead, a Japanese original animated series was produced, Transformers: The Headmasters, which totally reinvented the Headmaster concept for the Japanese market. In this series, there was no Vorath. The small Headmaster figure was Mindwipe himself, who connected to and controlled a larger, lifeless body called a Transtector. Mindwipe was one of a crew of tiny Transformers who left Cybertron millions of years ago to escape the war. These refugees settled on the planet Master, where they developed Headmaster technology to help them endure the planet's harsh climate. Mindwipe was among those who sided with Scorponok when he staged a coup and attempted to seize power on Master, but they were defeated and exiled from the planet, ultimately returning to Cybertron and joining up with the Decepticons there. Mindwipe appeared regularly throughout the series, always ready to deploy his hypnotic powers in battle to either send Autobots to sleep or entrance them into his service. Perhaps the most significant part he played, though, was when Scorponok instructed him to plant a cluster of plasma energy bombs at the heart of Cybertron, which, when they went off, destroyed the planet. Mindwipe's toy was discontinued in 1989, and after that, it would be just over 2 decades before his name was heard in a Transformers toy line again. But that finally changed when a new live-action movie incarnation of the character was introduced in the Revenge of the Fallen toy line in 2010. Still characterized as a creepy Decepticon with hypnotic powers, this Mindwipe transformed into a stealth fighter jet. And while he wasn't a Headmaster, he was still partnered with a smaller robot. The Decepticon stealth drone Skystalker, sold separately, could link up to Mindwipe in vehicle mode. Mindwipe made a few brief appearances in tie-in movie comics, and featured prominently in the Cyber Missions series of online animated shorts, including a spotlight episode in which he hypnotized Ironhide into gathering Energon for him, until Optimus Prime sent him packing. 2010 also saw the introduction of a Transformers animated version of Mindwipe, whose design played up the supernatural aspects of the character by making him look like a stereotypical turban-wearing Eastern mystic man, specifically based on 1950s TV personality Korla Pandit. He didn't appear in the animated cartoon, but did put in a last-page appearance in the 2011 issue of the Transformers Timelines comic book as a new member of the Decepticons Team Char. The original Mindwipe, meanwhile, kept busy making occasional appearances in media like comic books and video games. His most notable role during this time was in Dreamwave Productions' 2003 miniseries, The Dark Ages, in which he and other mystically inclined Decepticons Bludgeon and Bugley worked together to experiment with dark magic, leading them into an alliance with the ancient evil transformer The Fallen, who they agreed to serve in return for a share of his unearthly power. In 2016, Mindwipe returned to toy store shelves in the Titans Return line, the first new figure of the classic character since the original, complete with Vorath. In Japan, this toy was released as part of the Transformers Legends line, which earned Mindwipe an appearance in the tie-in Legends manga, a goofy comedy story in which Mindwipe learned the dangers of messing with black magic after a mystical bargain for increased hypnotic power that he struck with the deceitful spirit being Devil Zed backfired. Mindwipe's Titans Return toy was also the basis for his look in his most recent major appearance, in IDW Publishing's 2019 Transformers comic book. Set at the beginning of the war on Cybertron, this series saw Mindwipe putting both his hypnotic and scientific talents to use in service of the rising Decepticon movement, as he worked to give life to a gigantic Decepticon Titan for Megatron's war effort. His crowning moment in the series was the key role he played in saving Cybertron from the body-hopping tyrant Exarchon, when he ended his threat by hypnotically convincing him to transfer his life force into a containment cage. Mindwipe might be a slightly batty Decepticon who's not quite the black magician he'd like to believe he is, but he's still not a bot you'd want to meet on a cold Cybertronian night. And if you want to know why, all you need to do is look in his eyes. And those are the basics on Mindwipe. If you've enjoyed this peek into the dark corners of the Transformers universe, check out my Halloween playlist for some of Cybertron's other creeps, spooks, and monsters. Plus, you can get early access to new videos by supporting the series on Patreon.